We're about to dive into a 2,400-year-old book that asks a question we are still struggling with today. We're talking about Aristotle's Politics. His ideas about virtue, the middle class, and the whole point of government itself, they're baked into the DNA of our world. So, let's get into it.
It's the big one, isn't it? How do you build a perfect society? Philosophers have been chasing this for centuries, but maybe the most important debate on the subject started way back in ancient Greece, between a teacher and his student who came up with two totally different answers that changed everything.
And that debate kicks off right here. It's a classic showdown, the teacher versus the student. You've got Plato, the great idealist, and on the other side, his star pupil, Aristotle, the ultimate realist. And this really gets to the heart of how different they were. See, Plato was all about theory. He wanted to design the perfect state from the ground up, a utopia ruled by these incredibly wise philosopher kings. But Aristotle, he had a totally different approach. He got his hands dirty. He went out and studied over 150 real-world city-states to figure out what actually works in the real world. It wasn't about finding a perfect ideal, it was about understanding what's practical and what's possible. So by looking at all these real societies, Aristotle came to this huge conclusion, not just about government, but about us, about human nature itself, and why we even need politics to begin with. This is probably his most famous line ever. But what does he actually mean by political animal? Well, for Aristotle, it means we're not meant to be alone. We are social creatures through and through. To truly reach our full potential, we need to live in a community, what he called the polis, or the city-state.
And this brings us to a really key idea, eudaimonia. Now, you often see this translated as happiness, but that doesn't really capture it. It's deeper. It's about human flourishing, about living a virtuous, meaningful, and fulfilling life. And for Aristotle, this is the entire point of the state. It's not just there for defense or for the economy. Its ultimate goal is ethical, to create a society where its citizens can achieve eudaimonia.
He didn't see the state as some artificial invention. He saw it as something that grows naturally, organically. It all starts with the family. That's the basic unit. Then a bunch of families come together to form a village to meet more of their needs. And eventually, villages join up to form the polis, the city-state. That's the final form, the self-sufficient community where living the good life actually becomes possible. Okay, so if the state is natural and its goal is the good life, the next big question is, how should we organize it? This is where Aristotle, the scientist, really comes out. He creates this amazing blueprint, a system for classifying every kind of government you could possibly imagine.
He starts with what seems like a simple question, but trust me, his answer is anything but. To figure it out, he first had to build a system, a framework for sorting and judging all the different ways you can run a country.
And here it is, it's just brilliant. It all boils down to two questions. First, who rules? Is it one person, a few people, or a lot of people? And second, the really crucial one, in whose interest do they rule? Do they rule for the good of everyone or just for themselves? So if one person rules for the common good, that's a monarchy. But if they rule for themselves, that's tyranny. If a few good people rule for everyone, that's an aristocracy. But if they're just enriching themselves, that's an oligarchy. And now here's the one that might surprise you. When the many rule for the common good, he calls it a polity. The corrupted version, where the poor masses rule only for their own benefit, is what he called democracy. So out of all these, which one did Aristotle pick as the best? The polity. See, Aristotle was a huge believer in what he called the golden mean, the idea that the best way is usually somewhere in the middle, avoiding extremes. And he thought the most stable, most effective government would be a mix, blending parts of oligarchy, representing the rich, and democracy, representing the poor, to create a balanced state that works for everybody. And what's the secret sauce that holds this perfect blend together? A big, strong middle class. This was an absolutely revolutionary idea. Aristotle figured that if you have a large group of people who aren't super rich or desperately poor, they act like a political shock absorber. They prevent the extremes from tearing society apart. I mean, think about it. How often do we hear politicians today talking about the importance of the middle class? That's an idea that goes back 2,400 years to Aristotle. But look, Aristotle's legacy isn't all straightforward. It's incredibly powerful, and it's also, in some really important ways, deeply flawed. We have to be honest and look at both sides of the coin to really get his impact on our world. First, the good stuff. His ideas are literally everywhere. The principle of the rule of law, that no one is above the law, not even the ruler, that's pure Aristotle. The idea of a mixed government with checks and balances, that's a core concept behind the US Constitution.
Even the very notion that politics should be about more than just power, that it should have a moral goal, that's a direct line back to him.
But at the very same time, we have to face the ugly parts of his thinking. He was a man of his time, sure, but some of his ideas are just morally indefensible. He actually argued for the existence of natural slavery. He completely excluded women from having any role in public life. In his world, citizenship and the good life were only available to a tiny, privileged class of free, property-owning men.
So, how do we make sense of all that? How do we balance the good and the bad? Well, I think we do it by holding on to his single, most powerful and timeless insight, the big idea that ties everything else together.
This right here, this quote says it all. For Aristotle, politics isn't just a dirty game of power, and it's not just about managing an economy. It is the fundamental human project of creating the kind of community where we can all flourish and live meaningful, virtuous lives.
And that leaves us with a pretty heavy question to chew on, doesn't it? When you look around at our politics today, our debates, our leaders, our systems, are they really aimed at helping us achieve the good life? Or have we maybe lost sight of what Aristotle thought was the entire point? It's a 2,400-year-old question that has never felt more urgent.